Luke lived alone on a quiet ranch far from the busy town. He woke up every morning before sunrise, fed his horses, checked his fences, and worked until his back felt stiff. People in town said he was quiet, maybe too quiet, but everyone agreed he had a good heart. He never spoke badly about anyone, never got into trouble, and always helped neighbors when they needed a hand. Still, his ranch felt empty. The only sound that kept him company was the wind moving through the grass and the soft steps of his animals. One cool evening, when the sky was turning orange and the air felt heavy with dust, Luke noticed something unusual near the old wooden gate. A figure was slowly walking toward the ranch. It was a young woman, but she looked tired, unsure, and a bit afraid. Her clothes were dusty from the road, and her hands shook slightly as she held the strap of her small bag. Luke wiped his hands on his jeans and walked toward her, wondering who she was and why she had come alone to this remote place. The young woman stopped a few feet away from him. Her eyes were soft but full of worry. She hesitated before speaking, as if she expected him to turn her away before she even opened her mouth. Luke kept his voice calm and gentle as he asked if she was all right. She nodded, but her eyes told a different story. She looked like someone who had run away from something she didn't want to face again. "My name is Maria," she said quietly, almost too softly for him to hear. She explained that she had walked for miles and didn't know where else to go. She didn't ask for anything specific. She didn't demand shelter or food. She only said she needed a place to rest for a little while, if he would allow it. Luke studied her face for a moment. She looked tired, hungry, and scared, but she also looked like someone who had been strong for too long. Luke nodded and pointed toward the barn. He thought giving her a place to rest was the right thing to do. But Maria shook her head quickly, stepping back as if she didn't want to be in anyone's way. Luke gently explained she would be safe here, and if she wished, she could sit on the porch or rest inside the barn until she felt better. After a few long seconds, Maria finally agreed and followed him toward the porch. She sat on a wooden chair and looked around carefully as if afraid the world might collapse around her again. Luke noticed the tension in her shoulders and decided not to ask her too many questions. He brought her a glass of water and a small meal. She thanked him with a soft voice, the kind of voice that sounded like it hadn't been used much in days. As she ate slowly, Luke sat nearby, giving her space but staying close enough to show she wasn't alone. The sun continued to sink behind the hills, and the quiet of the evening wrapped around them like a soft blanket. For the first time since Maria arrived, her shoulders loosened a little. She looked at the horses grazing in the distance and whispered something about how peaceful the ranch felt. Luke didn't respond right away. He wanted her to speak only if she was ready. After a long pause, Maria said she didn't want to trouble him. She explained that she wasn't used to kindness anymore, and she didn't know how to accept it without feeling guilty. Luke told her she wasn't causing any trouble at all. His ranch had plenty of space, and she could stay for a while if she needed it. His calm tone seemed to settle her a bit, but he still sensed something heavy inside her heart. Later that night, after the stars came out and the air grew cooler, Maria finally gathered the courage to speak more honestly. Luke lit a lantern and placed it on the table near them. The soft glow made Maria's eyes shine with a mix of fear and sadness. She took a slow breath and said there was something he needed to know. She looked down at her hands, twisting her fingers together nervously. Luke waited patiently. He didn't push her, didn't rush her. He simply sat still, letting her take the time she needed. After a moment, Maria whispered, "I'm not pure." She said it so quietly that the night wind almost carried her words away. Her voice cracked slightly, as if those 3 words had been heavy on her chest for a long time. She didn't look up. She was sure Luke would step away or ask her to leave. She had seen people do that before, people who claimed to be kind until they heard something they didn't like. Maria expected the same reaction now. She braced herself for rejection, her hands shaking slightly. But Luke didn't move. He didn't pull back. He didn't even frown. Instead, he leaned forward just a little and gently placed his hand over hers. She gasped softly, surprised by the simple kindness. His touch wasn't forceful or demanding. It was steady, warm, and reassuring, as if he wanted her to know she was safe. Then he spoke the words she never expected. "I never asked you to be," he said quietly. Maria blinked, her breath catching in her throat. The words felt unreal, almost impossible. She had grown used to being judged. She had learned to expect disappointment, anger, or disgust from people. But Luke's voice held none of those things. His eyes were calm, steady, and full of gentle understanding. Maria didn't know how to respond. She felt tears gathering in her eyes, but she tried hard not to let them fall. She didn't want to look weak, but Luke didn't see weakness in her. He saw someone who had been carrying too much weight for too long, someone who needed a place to rest, not someone to judge her. When she finally looked up at him, Luke spoke again. He told her that everyone has a past. Everyone has moments they wish they could change or forget. But those moments didn't take away a person's worth. He told her that she didn't need to explain anything right now, not unless she wanted to. She didn't owe him a story or an apology. All she needed to do was breathe and take one small step at a time. Maria wiped her eyes slowly, still unsure how to accept such kindness. She felt something inside her soften, something she thought had hardened forever. She whispered a quiet thank you, her voice breaking a little. Luke nodded, telling her that she didn't have to thank him. Helping someone in need wasn't a burden to him. As the night grew deeper, Maria began to relax in small ways. She stopped holding her breath. She stopped looking around nervously. She looked toward the ranch house, the barn, the open fields, and felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: safety. She asked Luke if she could stay on the porch for the night, and he said she could stay anywhere she wanted. The ranch was big, and she was welcome. Luke brought her a warm blanket and a pillow, placing them gently beside her. He didn't hover over her or try to force her into a conversation. He simply made sure she was comfortable. Maria laid her head on the pillow and closed her eyes. For the first time in weeks, she felt her heart slow down in a peaceful way. Before going inside, Luke looked at her one more time. She was already drifting into sleep, her face calmer than before. He knew she carried stories that might be painful, but he also knew those stories didn't define her. People with heavy pasts often had the most strength, even if they didn't realize it. Maria slept under the stars, wrapped in the warm blanket, with the soft sound of horses moving nearby. And for the first time in her long journey, she didn't feel alone. She didn't feel judged. She didn't feel like a burden. She slept, knowing that someone finally saw her not as a mistake, not as a problem, but as a human being who deserved comfort and kindness. And that single night on the ranch marked the beginning of a new chapter in her life. One built on understanding, acceptance, and a gentle hand that held hers without asking for anything in return. Maria woke up the next morning with the sound of soft hooves moving outside. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Her eyes opened slowly, and she looked around. She saw the porch roof, the wooden steps, and the wide-open field stretching toward the sunrise. The light was gentle, warm, and golden. She sat up slowly, holding the blanket around her shoulders. Then she remembered Luke's kindness from the night before, and her heart felt strangely warm. Luke was already awake, working near the barn. He waved to her with a small smile, as if her being there was the most normal thing in the world. She felt shy, but also grateful. She stood up and walked toward him, almost unsure of how to behave. It had been a long time since anyone treated her with such respect. Luke asked if she had slept well. She nodded, and he didn't ask anything more. He didn't question why she had cried the night before or what her words truly meant. He simply accepted her presence. That made Maria feel lighter inside, although a part of her still wondered if she really deserved this peace. When she tried to help him with the morning tasks, Luke smiled gently and said she didn't have to do anything. But Maria insisted. She wanted to be useful instead of feeling like someone who only took kindness without giving anything back. Luke handed her a small bucket and asked her to feed the chickens. She nodded and went to work. As she scattered the grain, she watched the chickens gather around her feet, making small clucking sounds. She laughed softly at how eager they were. Her laugh surprised even her. It felt like a sound she hadn't heard in a long time. Light, real, free. Luke looked over from a distance and smiled. He noticed how quickly the ranch began to soften her anxiety. After breakfast, Maria walked around the ranch carefully, observing everything. The wooden fences, the horses grazing quietly, the tall grass swaying with the morning breeze, everything felt peaceful. She found herself breathing deeper, taking in the calm air. Something in her chest loosened, as if the ranch had given her permission to finally slow down. Luke continued his work, repairing tools, checking water troughs, brushing one of the horses. Maria watched him for a while. He moved in a calm, patient way, not rushing, not complaining. It was clear he was used to hard work, but he didn't look tired or angry. He looked steady. Maria approached him slowly and asked if she could help with the horses. Luke hesitated at first, not wanting her to do more than she felt ready for, but she assured him she wanted to try. He handed her a soft brush and showed her how to stroke the horse gently. The horse snorted and stepped forward, but Maria held her breath and followed Luke's instructions. After a few minutes, her hands moved naturally, and the horse became calm under her touch. She looked up at Luke, and he nodded at her with a quiet expression of approval. That small gesture filled her with a confidence she didn't realize she needed. She continued brushing the horse carefully, enjoying the warmth of its body and the steady rhythm of her movements. Throughout the day, Luke showed her small tasks she could help with: watering plants, carrying light tools, or simply giving grain to the animals. He made sure not to give her anything too heavy or tiring. He treated her not as a burden, not as someone he needed to rescue, but as a person who was part of the ranch now. Maria felt something new stirring inside her. She realized that the quiet routine of the ranch gave her structure, and Luke's gentle presence gave her comfort. She didn't feel judged. She didn't feel watched. She felt like she belonged somewhere for the first time in a very long time. Around noon, they ate lunch on the porch. The sun was bright, but not too hot. Luke sliced bread and cheese, and Maria offered to prepare the tea. As they ate, Maria noticed how simple everything was. No tension, no heavy silence, no questions she wasn't ready to answer. Luke talked about the weather, the horses, and the fence he planned to fix. He didn't ask about her past, and that silence was a gift to her. Maria slowly started talking too, sharing small things about her life but not the painful parts, at least not yet. She told him she liked watching sunsets, that she used to help her mother cook, and that she always wanted a peaceful place to live. Luke listened quietly, nodding from time to time, appreciating her small stories without pushing for more. After lunch, Maria insisted on washing the dishes. Luke let her, even though he tried to take one of the plates from her hand to help. But she smiled and shook her head, telling him she wanted to do it. Luke stepped back with a small smile of surrender, and Maria felt a sense of normalcy she had missed for years. In the afternoon, a neighbor stopped by to borrow tools. He greeted Luke and then glanced at Maria. His eyes were curious, maybe a little sharp, and he asked who she was. Maria felt her heart race. She didn't want to be judged again, especially by strangers. Before she could speak, Luke calmly said she was staying for a while and that she was helping out on the ranch. His voice had a final tone to it, as if he didn't want more questions. The neighbor seemed surprised but said nothing else. After he left, Maria turned to Luke with quiet gratitude in her eyes. He had protected her without making a scene. That simple moment made her trust him more. Later that evening, Maria sat on the porch watching the sky change colors. Luke was still working near the barn, finishing up for the day. The warm orange light touched everything, the fences, the grass, the wooden boards of the house. Maria hugged her knees to her chest and let the peaceful scene absorb into her heart. She thought about the rumors she had heard in her old town. People there often judged others quickly, sometimes with harsh words. They never let her forget her mistakes, even when she tried to change. That constant judgment made her leave. She had been terrified, tired, and unsure of what her life would become. But here, Luke didn't ask her to explain. He didn't demand answers. He didn't look at her with doubt. That alone made her feel more at ease than she had been in years. When Luke finally returned to the porch, he handed her a cup of warm tea. They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the evening sounds, the crickets chirping, the horses moving softly in the pasture. Maria took a slow sip of tea and whispered that she didn't want to be a problem for him. Luke shook his head gently and replied that she was not a problem. He told her the ranch had felt empty for too long, and it was nice to have someone around. Those words surprised her. She had always thought she brought trouble wherever she went. She had never imagined someone might actually appreciate her presence. Maria watched Luke carefully. He wasn't saying those words to make her feel better. He meant them. She could see the honesty in his eyes. For a moment, she felt her heart open just a little more. That night, Maria asked if she could sleep inside the house instead of the porch. She said she felt safer now, and Luke nodded. He prepared a small spare room for her, making sure everything was clean and comfortable. He placed a fresh blanket on the bed and opened a window to let in the cool breeze. Maria stood in the doorway of the room, feeling overwhelmed by his kindness. She whispered thank you, and Luke nodded again with that gentle smile of his. He didn't say much, but he didn't need to. His actions spoke clearly. Maria lay in the bed that night, feeling warmth around her. The quiet room, the soft pillow, and the gentle breeze helped her rest deeply. She closed her eyes and thought about how the ranch had slowly calmed her fears. She felt safe, accepted, and valued. And as she drifted into sleep, she realized something important. She wasn't just passing through anymore. She was becoming part of the ranch, part of Luke's quiet world. She didn't know what the next days would bring, but for the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful. Maria woke to a soft morning light filling her small room. The quiet hum of the ranch made her feel safe, and for a few seconds, she forgot she had a past at all. She stretched gently, feeling more rested than she had felt in many months. When she stepped outside, she saw Luke feeding the horses. He waved lightly, as he always did, and Maria's heart warmed at the sight. The ranch had slowly become a peaceful place for her, a place where her thoughts didn't chase her everywhere. She helped Luke with morning chores, giving water to the plants, brushing the horses, checking the chickens, and sweeping the porch. Luke watched her sometimes, not in a heavy or intense way, but in a quiet, grateful way, like he appreciated her presence. Maria liked that feeling. She had never been valued quietly before. Around noon, Luke decided to take a short trip to the edge of the ranch to check a broken fence. Maria wanted to go with him, not because she needed to work, but because she felt comfortable beside him. The two walked together in the warm sun, and the dust made small clouds under their boots. They spoke about small things, weather, animals, simple plans for the day. Maria felt light. She felt almost normal, but the world had a way of testing peaceful moments. When they returned toward the house, a figure stood near the porch, A man she recognized instantly. Her heartbeat jumped painfully in her chest, and her feet froze. Her vision blurred for a second, and she felt her breath tighten. The world she tried to leave behind had suddenly walked up to the ranch door. Luke noticed her reaction before he even saw the man clearly. Her face had gone pale and her shoulders had dropped as if a weight had fallen on her suddenly. Luke followed her gaze until he spotted the visitor. The man stood confidently, almost too confidently, with a posture that suggested he felt superior. His eyes quickly scanned the ranch before they landed on Maria. He lifted his chin slightly, a sign Maria remembered too well. He had come not to talk, but to judge. Luke stepped closer to her. He didn't touch her, but he stood at her side like a silent shield. Maria whispered the man's name under her breath. She hadn't seen him in a long time, but she had never forgotten how he always brought a storm with him. He wasn't cruel in a physical way, just sharp, cold, and unforgiving. He had been one of the loudest voices in her old town, always reminding her of the mistakes she had made, always making her feel like she would never be enough. Now, he was here. Luke greeted him calmly, but he was careful with his tone. The visitor didn't greet back. His eyes stayed on Maria, sharp and almost accusing, as if she had done something terrible simply by breathing the same air. "So this is where you ran off to," the man said, his voice heavy with judgment. Maria felt her voice disappear. She wanted to hide behind Luke, but she stopped herself. She didn't want to look weak, not in front of someone who had always treated her as if she were less than everyone else. Luke asked politely what brought him here. The man didn't look at Luke for long. He returned his cold stare to Maria and said he just wanted to make sure people here knew what kind of person she was. Maria felt the words cut inside her. She knew exactly what he meant. He always brought that same shadow with him. Luke's expression didn't change, but Maria sensed the calm strength growing in him. He stepped a bit forward, standing between Maria and the visitor, not aggressively but firmly, the way someone protects something they value. "What she is," Luke said in a steady voice, "is someone trying to live in peace." The visitor scoffed, shaking his head. He spoke again, saying that Maria had made mistakes, that she had been judged in their town, that she didn't deserve trust. His words were heavy, not loud, but sharp enough that Maria's eyes began to sting. She looked at the ground. She felt small again, the way she used to feel when the whole town looked at her with loud whispers and shaking heads. She felt her hands start to tremble. But Luke saw this, and he didn't let it continue. He told the man, in a quiet but firm tone, that whatever happened in Maria's past was not his concern. He told him that Maria was safe here, and that he trusted her. The visitor looked surprised, maybe even offended that anyone would stand up for her so easily. The man threw one last cold remark before leaving, something about Luke being blind or foolish. But Luke didn't react. He simply told him to leave the ranch. As the visitor walked away, Maria felt tears welling in her eyes. Her chest felt tight, and she didn't know whether to cry or apologize or run. Luke turned to her immediately, but not with anger or disappointment. His eyes were gentle. "You don't have to explain anything," he said softly. "Not unless you want to." That simple sentence broke something inside her, something that had been locked away for years. Her throat tightened, and tears finally fell. She sank slowly onto the porch step, covering her face. Luke sat beside her, not touching her, but close enough that she felt supported. When she calmed enough to speak, she told Luke that her past was not dark, but painful. She told him that she had made mistakes, small ones, misunderstandings, moments when she trusted the wrong people or tried to help someone and ended up blamed for it. The town had never let her move past those mistakes. People whispered, watched her, and judged her for things she never fully understood herself. Her life became heavy and she felt trapped. She said she had left only because she wanted a chance to breathe. Luke listened without interrupting. He didn't ask for details. He didn't want to dig into her wounds. He simply listened, giving her space to let out the words she had held inside for too long. Maria admitted she had feared he would change after hearing anything about her past. She feared he would see her differently. Luke shook his head gently. "You are not your past," he said. "And mistakes don't take away your value." Maria looked at him with watery eyes. She didn't know how someone could see her so kindly when others never had. Luke told her she deserved peace. He said it in a simple, honest voice. No dramatic words, no speeches, just truth. The rest of the day passed quietly. Maria stayed close to the house, thinking about everything that had happened. She replayed Luke's words again and again in her mind. Every time she remembered the visitor's harsh eyes, she also remembered Luke stepping forward to shield her. That balance made her heart feel calmer. In the evening, Maria sat on the porch again, watching the sky change colors. The air smelled of earth and grass, and the soft wind touched her hair. Luke joined her after finishing his chores. He didn't talk about what had happened earlier. He didn't ask if she was all right. He simply sat beside her in peaceful silence, letting her feel safe. Maria finally spoke, telling him she didn't understand why he believed in her so easily. Luke answered that sometimes people carry heavy stories because they have no one to share the burden with. He said he could see she was trying to heal, trying to be better, trying to find peace. And that was enough. Maria felt something shift inside her. A small but important change. She realized she had stopped seeing herself through the eyes of people who had hurt her. Slowly, she began to see herself through Luke's calm, gentle understanding. That night, when she went to her room, she didn't feel broken or judged. She felt hopeful. She felt like the ranch wasn't just shelter anymore. It was becoming home. The days after the unexpected visit passed slowly but peacefully. Maria began to recover from the heavy reminder of her past. Every morning, she woke to the soft sounds of the animals and the gentle brightness that filled her small room. When she stepped outside, the ranch always greeted her with calm air and warm sunlight. She felt lighter with each passing day, as if the land itself was helping her breathe again. Luke treated her with the same steady kindness he always had. He never mentioned the visitor again, never asked questions, and never showed impatience. Instead, he quietly made sure Maria had tasks she enjoyed. He taught her how to mend small fences, how to mix feed for the horses, and how to handle some of the tools around the ranch. The more she learned, the more she felt like she truly belonged there. One morning, Maria woke before Luke did. She stepped outside and saw the sunrise spreading soft gold across the fields. She felt peaceful as she walked to the barn, breathing in the fresh air. She wanted to surprise Luke by finishing a few chores before he came out. She brushed the horses, cleaned their stalls, and even carried a small bucket of water by herself. When Luke finally appeared, he looked surprised. "You didn't need to do all that," he said gently. "I wanted to," she replied, smiling shyly. Luke nodded, and though he didn't say much, his eyes showed quiet appreciation. He liked seeing her move with confidence, liked seeing how she was beginning to trust the ranch and herself. Later in the day, Maria asked Luke something she had been thinking about for days. She asked if she could plant something near the porch, maybe flowers or small vegetables. Luke looked curious at first, then smiled and told her she could plant anything she wanted. The ranch had more than enough space for her ideas. Together they chose a small spot near the front yard. Maria knelt down and touched the soil with her fingers. It felt soft and warm. Luke helped her loosen the dirt, and she placed little seeds inside carefully, almost as if planting pieces of her own hope. Luke stood nearby, watching her with calm eyes, and Maria felt a strange happiness growing inside her. She felt like she was finally creating something that belonged to her, something that represented a new beginning. As the days passed, the seeds sprouted little green stems. Maria checked them every morning, talking to them softly, as if encouraging them to grow strong. Luke would sometimes stop and look at the plants too, smiling quietly when he saw how proud she was of them. But the peace was not the only thing growing. Maria's confidence grew in small ways. She spoke more, laughed more, and walked with her shoulders a little higher. Sometimes she joined Luke when he rode out to check distant parts of the ranch. She would sit behind him on the horse or ride beside him if he gave her an easy horse to practice with. The open fields made her feel free, as if the whole world had space for her after all. One afternoon, when the sun was high and warm, Maria helped Luke stack hay near the barn. They worked side by side in comfortable silence. After they finished, they sat on the porch, drinking cool water. Maria watched the clouds drift slowly across the sky. "You know," she said softly, "I didn't think I would ever find a place where I felt safe." Luke didn't respond right away. He looked toward the fields, his expression calm. "You've been through a lot," he said. "Anyone would feel lost after that." Maria lowered her eyes. "It wasn't just being lost. I thought people would always see me as someone who didn't deserve peace." Luke shook his head gently. "People don't always see clearly," he said. "Sometimes they only see what they want to see." Maria took a slow breath. "And you? What do you see?" Luke looked at her then, not with intensity or discomfort, but with steady truth. "I see someone who's stronger than she knows," he said. "Someone who tries even when she's scared. Someone who deserves to rest, breathe, and live without fear." A soft warmth filled Maria's chest. She felt tears form in her eyes, but this time they weren't from pain. They were from something softer, something healing. Later that evening, Maria stood in front of the small mirror in her room. She barely recognized herself. Her face looked calmer, her eyes looked brighter. She didn't look like the frightened woman who had arrived on the ranch. She looked like someone who was slowly rebuilding herself. She walked outside and found Luke fixing a small panel on the porch railing. She sat nearby, letting the evening breeze cool her cheeks. After a moment, she asked him a question she had feared for weeks. "Do you want me to stay here? Long term?" Luke paused. Not because he didn't know the answer, but because he wanted to say it carefully, gently. "You can stay as long as you want," he said. "You don't owe me anything, and you don't have to decide today. Just take your time. The ranch isn't going anywhere." Maria smiled softly. She felt safe with those words. She felt trusted. She felt free to choose. The next day, a surprising moment happened. A few people from the nearby town passed by the ranch to drop off supplies. They greeted Luke warmly and then noticed Maria. She expected suspicious eyes, judgmental whispers. But instead, they greeted her kindly. Luke had told them nothing about her past, only that she was helping him on the ranch. The townspeople treated her like anyone else. After they left, Maria stood quietly, feeling the weight lift from her heart. Luke saw her expression and asked if she was all right. "I'm fine," she said softly. "I'm just surprised." "Not everyone sees the world the same way," Luke replied. Maria realized then that she didn't need to hide from everyone. Some people were kinder than she had expected, especially the man standing beside her. As the days turned into weeks, Maria became a natural part of the ranch. She laughed more often, worked with more confidence, and even started humming while she cooked or cleaned. Luke noticed all of it. He never said much, but sometimes he watched her with a gentle smile, as if thankful that life had changed for both of them. One evening, they sat together on the porch, watching the sun melt into the horizon. The sky burned with soft pink and gold. Maria hugged the blanket around her shoulders and turned to Luke. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" he asked quietly. "For not judging me, for not asking me to be perfect, for giving me a place to breathe." Luke looked at her, his voice calm but full of truth. "You never had to be perfect. You just had to be yourself." Maria felt her throat tighten. She reached out slowly, almost hesitantly, and Luke gently held her hand. Their fingers stayed intertwined as the warm colors of the sunset faded into night. In that moment, Maria understood something clearly. She wasn't alone anymore. She wasn't broken. She wasn't running from her past. She was standing in a new life, one built on trust, kindness, and simple understanding. The ranch, which had once been silent and lonely, now felt complete. And for Maria, it became the place where her heart finally found peace.